When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject: Safety Deposit, Part 1. User: LN34001. Posted June 26, 1997.
I've been a teller long enough that the days blend together. Same fake greetings, same plastic pens chained to the counter, same little green slip slid across the desk with chicken scratch signatures. You stop seeing people after a while. All you notice are the numbers, the ink, the drawer balancing at the end of your shift. If I ever dream, it's in ledger sheets and loose bills. 20 after 20 after 20. The bills soft from being handled too much. The bank had its rhythm, and we were all trapped in it. The phones ringing, printers spitting out checks, the constant whir of the bill counter. I swear sometimes the fluorescent lights buzzed louder than everything else combined, like they were trying to burrow into my skull. Most of the time, that noise was the scariest thing about my job. Except the vault. The vault was different. Everyone joked about it being a tomb, but I never laughed. When you stepped in, it felt like crossing into some place you didn't belong. Air heavier, stale. Sound didn't bounce around like it should, it just died. I hated it. Some days I'd avoid walking past the door if I didn't have to. I didn't really think about it much until Mrs. Aldrist asked for me. She was one of our oddball customers. Old money, the kind you only ever hear about in rumors. She's maybe 75, 80, a widow, always dressed in black like she was permanently in mourning. Even in summer, when everyone else was sweating through their clothes, she'd glide in wearing gloves, then buttoned at the wrist. She smelled faintly of lavender and mothballs, and her handwriting was so neat it looked like something copied out of a book. The other tellers hated dealing with her, not because she was rude, but because she was off. No small talk, no wasted words, just her business. And her business was always the same. Once a month, without fail, she came to the bank to see her safety deposit box. Usually, our manager handled her personally, but that day he was out with the flu, and I was the unlucky one tapped to fill in. She called me by my name, Mr. Dwyer, if you don't mind. Her voice was thin and papery, but it had weight, like if you disobeyed, you'd feel it. I nodded and followed her down to the vault. A steel door loomed over us, 4 feet thick, bolts like tree trunks. I spun the wheel and pulled it open, the heavy groan echoing through the lobby. Inside, the air smelled like old pennies and dust. The walls were lined with neat little boxes, stacked in rows, each one holding someone's secrets. I slid hers out. It was heavier than it looked, and it clanged against the table when I set it down. She didn't remove her gloves right away. Instead, she waited for the vault door to slam shut again. When it did, she carefully unbuttoned them, folded them, and set them beside the box. Her hands were pale, thin-skinned, veins like blue cords under parchment. "Please step back," she said. I did, though I leaned just enough to watch. She opened the lid. At first, I thought it was my imagination, a trick of the light, but then I saw it. Movement. Just a shiver like fabric stirred by a breeze. But then there was no breeze in the vault, and then came the sound. Faint, but sharp enough to cut through me. Wet, dragging, like something slick shifting against the steel. Mrs. Aldrich slammed the lid shut so fast it echoed. She leaned down close to the box and whispered, "Still, stay still." The words weren't meant for me. I felt my stomach drop, my mouth went dry, but I forced words out anyway. "What was that?" She looked up, eyes colder than the steel around us. For a heartbeat, I thought she'd snap at me, but she just said, "It's been in my family for generations. The bank is the only place strong enough to hold it. My father made them promise." I stared, waiting for her to laugh, to tell me I was being silly, but she was dead serious. "Hold what?" I asked. She slid her gloves back on, movement sharp, practiced. Not what, who. And that was that. She locked the box, handed it back, and swept past me as if nothing had happened. I stood in the vault, box in my hands, heart hammering so hard I thought it might break ribs. I knew I'd seen something. I knew I'd heard something. The ripple, the sound, there was no mistaking it. I tried to shake it off, but my brain wouldn't let me. That night, I stayed late. Told myself it was just to finish balancing drawers, but really, I was waiting, hoping, dreading. The bank was different at night, empty, quiet. The hum of the lights seemed louder. The clock on the wall ticked like a hammer. I told myself I was being ridiculous, that I'd let an old woman's weirdness get under my skin. I was halfway through counting a stack of tens when I heard it. A scratch. I froze. My hands stopped. My lungs forgot how to work. Scratch, scratch. It came from behind the vault door. Slow, steady. Not rats, not pipes, not the building settling. No. This was deliberate. The sound of fingernails testing steel, dragging across it like they were checking for weak spots. I wanted to believe it was my imagination, the stress of the day getting to me, but deep down, I knew better. Something was in there, and it wanted out.
Subject, Harlow's Hardware. User, the roof is 99. Posted, September 22nd, 1999.
I wasn't supposed to be there. Wasn't even supposed to still have the keys, but I'd stashed a copy of my own after hours. Call it curiosity. Call it stupidity. All I knew was that every Thursday night for the last month, a semi with its lights off had slid into the alley behind Harlow's Hardware, and whatever they were unloading wasn't on any inventory sheet I'd ever seen. I crouched behind the lawnmower display, heart hammering, eyes fixed on the storeroom door. Through the crack, I saw Mr. Harlow haul down the ramp, back bent but steady, dragging a crate big enough to hold a refrigerator. His wife ticked notes in that leather-bound book of hers, the one with the looping handwriting that never looked like English. The driver never spoke, just lingered in the shadows, hands jammed deep in his jacket, like he didn't want to admit he was part of this. They pried the lid off. I expected pipes, boxes of nails, maybe something shady but harmless. What I saw instead was pale, stretched flesh under a sheet of cloudy plastic, the kind of sight your brain refuses to label. Human or animal, it didn't matter. It was meat. And it wasn't the first time. The smell had been building for weeks, rotting sweet beneath the paint thinner and fertilizer. The sawdust bins filled even when no wood had been cut, gray dust clinging to my hands like ash. I'd heard the whispering too, soft, rhythmic voices in the back room when no one was there. I kept telling myself I was imagining it, but seeing the crate open, that was proof. I leaned too close, and my elbow brushed a wrench off the shelf. The clang echoed like a gunshot. Both their heads snapped up, eyes shining in the half-light. "Come on out," Mr. Harlow said. Not angry, just calm. Too calm. I bolted, past the registers, through the aisles of hoses and socket sets, toward the front door. It wouldn't budge. The keys I made rattled, useless in the lock. Behind me, their footsteps never hurried, never stumbled, just steady. "You weren't ready," Mrs. Harlow called, her voice lilting like a Sunday school teacher soothing a child. "But the order takes who it needs." Whispers swelled. They weren't speaking. No, the shelves themselves were alive. Socket wrenches buzzed in their blister packs. Shovels rattled like bayonets. The air compressors hissed without power. The whole store throbbed with sound. I ducked into the paint aisle, chest burning. My hands shook so bad I almost dropped the box cutter I carried, blade flashing weak in the flickering light. Every overhead bulb stuttered, casting the aisles in stop motion. Between bursts of light, the shadows bent and stretched like black fingers reaching for me. The storeroom door yawned wider, spilling a glow not of fluorescent bulbs, but of something orange and pushing like embers in a furnace. The whispers deepened into a chant. I could see it then, the body in the crate, arms jerking like a marionette tugged by strings. "You've already joined," Mr. Harlow said, his voice carrying across the aisles like it had been piped straight into my skull. "Every day you worked here, you touched the pieces, the dust, the ledgers, the tools. You've been marked." I pressed the box cutter to my palm just to feel something real. My breath came in quick, shallow bursts. My mind screamed to run, but my body locked up. So I did the only thing I could think of. I lit the motherfucker up. A can of thinner cracked open, a rag soaked and dragged across the tiles, a lighter sparking in my shaking hand. The fumes caught with a low roar, racing back toward the storeroom. Flames licked the shelves, paint cans swelling and bursting like mortars. The whispers turned to shrieks, not human shrieks, metal on metal, like 1,000 saw blades binding all at once. Tools clattered from their hooks, handles twisting, nails spilling in showers of sparks. The Harlows didn't move. They stood side by side, eyes reflecting the fire, calm as statues. Mr. Harlow raised one hand in something like a benediction, palm outward as the glow consumed them. I rammed my shoulder against the front door until the glass spiderwebbed, until it finally gave and I spilled out onto the sidewalk. Smoke poured after me, thick and choking. Sirens wailed somewhere distant, growing closer. I didn't stop running until the streetlights blurred, until my legs gave out on the grass 2 blocks away. By morning, Harlow's hardware was gone. Nothing but a scorched skeleton, brick walls black against the sky. The fire chief told the paper it must have been an accident with solvents. No bodies were pulled from the rubble. No record of deliveries. The Harlows had simply vanished. The cops asked me questions, but I kept my mouth shut. Who would believe me, right? That the kindly old couple who sold birdseed and power drills were storing bodies in the back and chanting with hammers and nails? Still, I don't even know what I saw. Everything has a purpose, Mr. Harlow used to say, and I'm terrified that mine hasn't been used yet.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.